Hear all about it. Underwriters replaced not by machines, but by risk managers. It seems like almost every day we hear about another type of automation, data, analytics, workflow solutions, all of which are going to drive automation and efficiency. And that promise is really tempting. Because if we look at the underwriting expense, it's 24 cents per dollar of premium is spent on the underwriting process, right? That's not settling claims. So there's a huge amount of opportunity to be gained. McKinsey paints a picture of a world, a bold world in 2030. In 2030, underwriting as we know it today ceases to exist for most personal and small business products. The process of underwriting is reduced to a few seconds as the majority of underwriting is automated and supported by a combination of machine and deep learning models. But it's not just underwriting. More than half of claims activities have been replaced by automation, and advanced algorithms handle initial claims routing, increasing efficiency and accuracy. But the question is, what do we do with those efficiency gains? Right? So our shareholders might want us to return those as profit. We might look at automation and see that as a way to swap out people, humans, with machines, as the beginning of that sentence was. But I think there's a different opportunity to do something much better, and that's to accelerate investment in risk management and do that in partnership with customers. It creates a win-win opportunity. First, reducing loss frequency and severity. So ultimately, as insurers, we provide a financial backstop, right, to protect our customers from events that can put them at risk. But we also want to reduce those underlying risks in the first place, right? How can we make an event less frequent, not occur as much, not affect as many of our customers? Or when it does affect it, to make that impact less severe, less disruptive to their lives and their businesses. Second is to interact more with our customers. I spent about 4 years doing price optimization for retail banks. We worked with both fintechs and with traditional banks, large banks. And it was really interesting to see the difference between those two groups. Right, the fintechs had two very large advantages. One is they had very little cost base, right? None of them even owned a single building. But the second one, which I think is even more important, is that they had high-frequency, in-depth conversations with their customers. They knew exactly what was happening with their customer base in a way that a lot of the larger institutions didn't. That interaction is incredibly important, and we're going to talk more about that today. And the third opportunity is to increase profit for insurers, decrease premium, and do it in a way that shares the upside. So I'll take an oversimplified example. If we pretend that a premium maybe for my house is $100 a year, and that premium is just technical price. So it doesn't include profit, doesn't include the cost of underwriting, it's just technical price. What's the risk actually? What should you pay for the risk? If it's $100, but my insurer can work with me and help me take steps to reduce that risk and reduce that technical price down to $80, there are a couple options. Right? One is the insurer could just sort of smile and say, nice job, Roger, and pocket $20 of additional profit. Another option, though, is to split and share in that upside. So to come back to me and say, good work, Roger, you've reduced your risk, it's less likely you're ever going to have to call me, I'm going to reduce your premium by $10. Instead of you paying me $100, you're going to pay me $90. And the insurer gets to keep $10 of additional profit. By doing that, you're incenting me to take steps that ultimately reduce my risk. And we share in that upside in a way that's actually much more profitable. So before we go to 2030, I'd like to take a look at some of the things that all of you in the audience have already achieved from a risk management perspective. Innovation in large commercial. Right? I think for many of us, you think about it, and this is where a lot of this sort of ethos started. Right? You look at a large industrial facility, an oil processing refinery, a port, right? A plant that processes bespoke kinds of machinery. They're very, very, very individual risks. Right? There's not a lot that's common across them. And the only way that you can insure those risks is to really understand what is the risk. Visit it. Talk to the people who manage that risk. Talk about steps you can take together to actually control some of that risk and ultimately make it insurable, right? If there wasn't loss control, if we didn't go in and say, I really need you to take on these safety protocols, is there a way that we could relocate this part of the dangerous plant to somewhere that's not next to gas tanks? Those steps are what allow us to provide insurance. And I think that's a huge inspiration and opportunity to do more of the same for other lines of business. So if we look at small commercial, we have the opportunity, and already are doing, reducing back injuries by 50% with a wearable that's called Kinetic. So that's what you see on the left. That little device that you put on your belt measures your posture, right? You're doing a lift if you work in a warehouse, and understands, are you doing that in a way that's safe and repeatable? It's incredibly important, right? I have back problems. I would like to not have back problems. And as a business, a back problem is really serious, right? If you work in a warehouse, that will put you out of work for a long time. You may have a claim about it. You may have recurring injuries that never go away because of that. That little device can help us reduce back injuries by 50%. And many insurers are working with Kinetic to do that right now and ultimately reduce the underlying risk. Also, we can protect digital assets with cyber insurance. So one thing that's always stuck with me, I spent a year in a cyber sort of startup that's become an MGA, and we were building a platform to assess cyber risk and connect insurers and brokers together. And one of the facts that I'll never forget is that in 2019, the US Director of National Intelligence ranked cyber as the #1 risk to the security of the United States. That was the first time anything had gone above nuclear weapons. But that's an incredible thing to think about. I mean, at least I grew up worrying about nuclear weapons, and unfortunately, I think maybe that worry is coming back again. But cybersecurity is incredibly important to our society. It's important to how we protect our businesses, our economies. Over 90% of the S&P 500 is thought to be actually created, or the value in the S&P 500 is digital. It's IP. It's not buildings and structures. So when you think about that, that much of our economy is actually an intangible asset. That asset needs to be protected. The advances that we've made together to understand that risk have allowed us to price it and to write that insurance and protect our customers. Now, if we look at personal lines, we can drive safer with apps like DriveWell, right? So lots of us are familiar with the use of these, so we can understand our customers' behaviors. They can opt in and get perhaps cheaper insurance by showing that they're really good drivers. That's awesome. It's great. But there's another side of that coin too, which is we can provide feedback to those drivers and tell them how to become even better drivers and keep more of our roads safe. On the right side, we can stop water leaks with a device called Flume. I'll talk more about this later too. 30% of losses to US homes are caused by water damage, or freezing. So if we can understand what water is going in and out of the house, right? It can tell you whether at 2 in the morning when everybody's asleep, you still have water flowing through your pipes. That means you have a leak. If you're gone, you're on vacation, right? You get an alert on your phone, and it says, you're going through 10 gallons a minute. I'm like, how is that possible? I'm not home and my sprinklers aren't on. Now I know I have a problem in my house. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of innovations that all of you have brought to this world. These are just a couple examples of them, some small examples. And many of these create huge streams of data. But now, if we look at underwriting, and let's see how data is used in underwriting. In underwriting, we strive to make as perfect of a decision as we possibly can, right? We buy huge amounts of data. We sell some of that data. We use sophisticated analytics. We sell some of those analytics. We bring all that to bear, like an arsenal, to this moment, and we try and make the best possible decision that we can about that risk. Largely, we do that on a single day, a day called renewal. And 364 of the other days, we have radio silence. So what if we captured that signal 365 days of the year? By putting continuous engagement and AI together, we can highlight and discover all kinds of things. First, we can see there's huge variation in this risk, right? From one day to the next, it varies dramatically. There's no such thing as a stable risk. I'm doing different things in my houses. I'm getting propane tanks and sticking them right by the side of my house when I shouldn't. Bought a welding machine with a tank of gas. All kinds of things are changing continuously, but nobody knows that. I know that, but nobody else knows that. My insurer doesn't know that. So we can see how much risk varies if we have a direct tap into some of these processes and IoT devices that are in our homes. We can also find patterns. So, I think it's, for those of you who write homeowners, right, there's a certain type of electrical box that I don't have to name that is incredibly dangerous. There are 2,800 fires from that box each year, electrical fires. We know that now. Everybody knows to look out for that when you do an inspection of a home. But how did we find that out? We found that out because we experienced tons of losses, right? And eventually, we're able to connect and figure out that that was an issue. If we have devices that monitor our electrical consumption, and we'll look at one of those in a minute, we can actually see some of the precursors to these events happening. We can see that maybe there's an issue, there's a fault in the wiring of my house, or I have one of these old panels. Again, the panel one we already know about. But what are those new risks? What are those new things we're putting in houses today that are going to become like that panel 10 years from now? How do we find that out? Do we find it out after we have 1,000 claims? Or can we find it out because we're monitoring the electrical consumption of my house, and we can see if something looks anomalous, looks suspicious? If you can find the pattern in me, you can then look for it across the population of all your customers. So this granular risk understanding unlocks a transformational opportunity, and that opportunity is to become the risk manager for every small business and person on this planet. It's the opportunity to become the risk manager for every small business and person on this planet. When we think about large commercial, there are teams of people who do this, right? Large businesses have risk management teams. Might be 20, 50, 100 people. Their brokers are involved in risk management. Their insurers are involved in risk management. Third parties are helping them to manage that risk. Small businesses, nobody's there. Us, each of us in the audience, there's nobody who's helping us manage our risk. And streaming data provides these raw ingredients. They give us insight. They give us continuous signal into the very risk that we're talking about. It's a unique opportunity for insurers to partner with IoT providers and to actually monitor and watch that risk and create that opportunity to help customers manage the risk. Because you can manage what you can measure. And we can now measure most of the things that we want to. So a number of adages I'm going to bring up. First adage, insurance is all about relationships. I think we would all agree about that, right? We have the opportunity to create that many more relationships. We can work continuously with customers to manage their risk on an ongoing basis. They know who we are. We know who they are. We get to engage with them regularly and help them control risk in their lives. The second adage, loyalty is won when you have a claim. So about a month and a half ago, we took a family trip, my wife and my daughter and I, and we drove from California to Yellowstone. It's an awesome trip. Got to watch my daughter see buffaloes, and it was amazing, right? It was amazing. On the way back, though, unfortunately, we had a high-speed encounter with a deer. Luckily, we were okay. The deer was less okay. And so I had to file a claim, right? And as I filed that claim, I thought to myself, and I said, when was the last time that I've had a claim? I had to think about it. It was something like 5 years ago. Somebody backed into me in a gas station. I was sitting still, and they just backed into me. So that was the last time I'd filed a claim. And I realized that in 25 years of driving, I've filed 2 claims. So if loyalty is won when you have a claim, in 25 years, there were only 2 opportunities to create loyalty with me. Even if I had a claim once every year, that'll be one opportunity, like that screen we just saw before. There's a carrier who interacts on average 2 times a week with their customers. 2 times a week. That's more than 100 times a year that they're interacting. Even if I had a loss once a year, that'd be 1 time a year versus 100 times a year. In reality, the average car accident happens every 18 years. So it's not actually 1 opportunity versus 100 opportunities. It's 0.05 versus 100 opportunities. So if you're engaging with customers, you have that many more times to earn loyalty, to do things they care about, to collaborate with them. Another adage, data is oil. It is. I think most of us would agree with that. It's incredibly powerful. But I would argue that engagement is gold. And many of your customers want to engage on risk management. You know who they are. They email you. They call you. I'm one of them. Every time I install some gizmo in my house, because I like gizmos, right? I literally email my insurance agent and I say, hey, I just installed this. What's my premium drop? Right? And they kind of write some nice thing back to me. Hey, Roger, it's already taken into account in the base rate. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, I installed another one. What about now? I'm like, come on, you can't tell me 3 times in a row I don't get a premium drop. I'm like, what's going on here, guys? So they look at me and think, this guy's really annoying. Like, when is he going to stop? He keeps buying things and emailing us and demanding premium reductions. Like, he's super annoying. We don't like this Roger guy. So some of the things that I do in my house, right, we have a Nest Cam. So we secure our home using that. We don't like older types of traditional security alarms. We get to do facial recognition. We can identify objects. I know what's my dog. I know whether it's any member of my family on my property, someone I don't know. We talked about flume, catch water leaks with flume. So in my county, they will actually pay for half of the cost of that device, which I think, don't quote me on this, is somewhere around $200. My county will pay for half the cost of the device because we were in a drought. And they know that if I can measure it, I can help reduce my water consumption. So another opportunity outside of insurance to come together and partner, do the right thing, and ultimately create the right outcome. I've caught 2 water leaks with that. Also, you can proactively identify electrical faults, like we were just talking about with that electrical box, using a device called Ting. That one was actually sent to me for free from my insurer, maybe possibly to shut me up. Right, but that can identify anomalous behavior in your electrical system, right? That's the precursor to knowing you're going to have a short, knowing something is going to go wrong. And the fourth one, I live in California, and so I'm really worried about fire following earthquake, right? We all know about the damage of earthquake, which is significant. And if you're lucky enough for your house and your structure not to be damaged, you may end up having it go down in a fire, right? Because your gas line is active, your gas line gets broken, something sparks, and now you've lost your house from a fire. So an earthquake shutoff valve basically means my house won't go down, at least on its own. Huge reduction in my risk in California. And, well, I didn't put it up here because it's embarrassing it involved me. I even ran a timed mile to try and get cheaper life insurance, which I somehow managed to do. But right, so what I'm talking about this is, it's not about me. There's lots of people out there who are doing things. Whether you incent them or not, they're interested in reducing their risk, right? They don't want to call you. You don't want them to call you. That's a bad day, right? Whether we can rebuild our lives and do that quickly with minimal disruption, it's still one of the worst days of your lives if you're going to lose your structure or have your business go down and something happens to your business. So if we can reduce the chances and the severity of that happening, it's an incredible opportunity. So the prior slide looked almost the same, except now we have a smiley face in the middle, right? I'm that annoying customer. Hey, can you drop my premium? It's me again. It's Roger. Hi, I installed something new, right? Third adage, a good customer is one you don't hear from. I don't know if that's true, right? You hear from me. That's annoying. Doesn't sound very fun. But in actuality, if you think about it from another lens, I may be the blueprint to success. Not me, but people like me, because I'm actively interested in risk management. I am going out there spending my own dollars to try and reduce the risk in my home. I'm aware of the risk in the first place. I'm aware of opportunities to reduce that risk. I'm acting on those opportunities. So maybe I'm annoying, but maybe people like me are actually the blueprint of people reaching out, trying to do this very thing, to collaborate with you on risk management. They're actively interested in it, and they want to engage with you. That's gold. So data and analytics can drive this win-win risk management formula. It can help you identify segments of your customer base. Who are people who are engaged in risk management? Who in your customer base has already installed some of these tools? Who maybe might be interested, but doesn't quite know where to start. But if you give them a little bit of a nudge, they might be very open to it. You can identify those people, right? You can figure out which cohorts look like that. You can then identify what should you do. Once you know who we are, how should you reach out to us? What offers might you give us? So that's that second part, is engaging with customers. Now you know which ones might be open to it or which ones drive high risk. So now interact with us, reach out to us, run campaigns, do test and learn. You don't need to go buy 100,000 Ting devices. Buy 100, send them out, see what happens. See if people like them. Do people actually open the box and plug them in? Right? You can find that out very quickly, but you don't find it out in your boardroom. You find it out by mailing that package and engaging with that customer. As we think about many of these opportunities, not all of them are IoT, right? Some of them can be changes in programs and policies. The ones that are IoT, right, it creates a tsunami of data. And there's a huge range of estimates for how many connected IoT devices we'll have in 2030. I mean, they're literally all over the place. Like a conservative one would be $24 billion, 24 billion devices. Estimates go even way up from there. 24 billion devices. That's a massive amount of information, right? All of that is signal. It's pure signal piped right into your building if you choose to connect it, if you choose to give your customer a reason to share that information with you. It's a tsunami of information that you can harness. And predictive analytics helps us understand what of that information is useful, is signal that we want versus noise, so we can surf that tsunami instead of drowning in it. You guys have probably seen this now a lot this week, right? We're very excited about Guidewire Live. It's our integrated suite of applications and products to help you do many of the things we talked about today. And that smart loop is really the heart of it, right? It helps you leverage more data to embed intelligence, to learn continuously. And then we have the applications that we've talked about and drive more business impact with Explore, and understand the performance in your portfolio. What are your KPIs? Are you meeting them? What are the opportunities to improve? You can then benchmark against your peers using Compare to the data cooperative. And you can consume compelling data that helps you underwrite casualty risk with Assess, right? We've curated a data set specifically designed to help you make those decisions with confidence. You can predict any outcome with our product strangely called Predict. You can manage catastrophes with Respond to understand what is going to happen to your customers. Where should you deploy adjusters? What help can you get them? Where should you be expecting claims? Have they all come through? If they haven't, why? Can we reach out and see if those people are okay? You can also consume property data with Hazard Hub. Right, you guys have heard a lot about that. We're really, really excited to have them part of the family. Incredibly rich data set to help you make better decisions. And that information that helps you make a better decision, you can share with your customer, right? There's no one saying you can't. You can take all that insight and hand it to your customer and say, did you know that you are in the perimeter of a historic wildfire? There are things that you can do. How much vegetation do you have near your building, right? Could you push some of that out, trim some of it back? Do you have guards in your gutters so that you don't have leaves accumulating, right? That will spark and get your roof on fire. So there's all kinds of things we can do to not only make a better underwriting decision, but then share that information back to ultimately manage that risk. And as we talked about, to allow you to confidently write cyber using our science product. So when we started this, we talked about McKinsey's view for 2030. And And that automation would drive huge efficiency. But if you choose, that can just be half the story. We can use that very same automation, efficiency, data and analytics to not only create the opportunity to do something different with our time and our resource, but to actually direct that explicitly at risk management. And that's what drives the win-win. First, we can reduce loss frequency, severity. Second, we can interact more with our customers. And third, we can create this opportunity to share the upside. They get a reduction in premium, we actually make a bunch more money because the risk is lower than what we're charging. Everybody benefits, and we're actually decreasing risk in the world, right? And we talked about that opportunity to become the risk manager for every small business and person in the world. So I'm going to leave you with one question. In 2030, will you call yourself an insurer or a risk manager? Thank you.